Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of iZombie, another great episode. A lot of very interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I love the fact is that in this episode, obviously Liv is eating the brain of kind of a detective, and I love that being the episode kind of having like this noir detective thing to it. I love you have Robbie being like, oh man, this is so good. Like obviously Clive, you're going to be the partner that's kind of like the thorn in her side, but I'm going to be the one that's, you know, always reliable and trustworthy, but kind of gets taken for granted. Honestly, that's not much of a stretch for either one of our roles. But I love like the moment like she does it, like this, they don't make it a full black and white episode, but they add this, like they make the lighting kind of dim so it kind of resembles kind of that noir look, and I love it. And I even love they bring it up in the episode. They're like, yes, it's like she's like, because Jane's like, oh, it's kind of dark in here. It's like, yeah, the lights are kind of messed up, so it looks a little dark in here. But just the stuff that Liv says, it's just she says like she's very kind of like cliche. Noir thing. Like one of my favorite conversations was between her. It's like, oh yeah, like her and Clive. Clive is like, you need to get some rest, and she's like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And he's like, you're already dead. She's like, we're all dead, Clive. We just don't know it yet. He's like, okay. I just love that back and forth. And then like even the whole Donnie situation, because him and Darcy are having issues. It's like that's the thing about, you know, like basically kind of guarding your heart. It was a whole conversation about love and everything. Even the interrogation with Blaine when she slapped him. Just the back and forth between, especially in the office. That's so interesting. Like I noticed it too. Like the moment he started messing with him, I'm like, he already ate Jane's brain. But the fact of the matter is, like the back and forth between it was almost kind of like, it seemed like that was kind of the angle they were potentially going for, in the sense of almost, it seemed like more of a, oh yeah, like the detective, you know, the private eye or whatever, you know, going toe to toe with like maybe like some, not necessarily femme fatale, just kind of for the aesthetic they're going for. They're like, oh, the dame that walked into his life. But I guess like when you kind of break down Blaine whole situation, it's like I guess he would kind of fit more the femme fatale thing, aesthetic, I guess, to a certain extent, just because he is the killer that he is and stuff. Like so, but it's so interesting, like to see that back and forth. I even love it. Like, oh, they're like, Miss Moore, because the police had arrived, and it's like, okay, and just like Blaine gets kicked out, and they're like, yeah, you should probably get going too. She's like, okay. Clive kicks her off the case, and it's just the back and forth is so good. I like that aesthetic too. I've never watched a whole bunch of noir movies like that, but still you understand that vibe, and it does so well when you see Liv kind of being sucked up into that, because I think it comes at a very opportune time, because obviously she finds out from Robbie. I was like, yo, they jumping on that quick. Robbie's like, yeah, Beanpole Bob, yeah, that was your dad. She confronts her dad about it. He's like, oh, Utopium, I don't remember how to make it. It was all those years ago. I was out of my mind. I'm like, you're full of shit. We know you are, because for one, we know you're still, we as the audience know you're still popping Utopium. And so it's like when he goes to Robbie and stuff like that, and he's pumping Robbie for information, I'm like, what do you, because I knew like for him, the moment he heard from Liv, like, oh, it could potentially lead to a cure, he doesn't want a cure, because he's trying to lead this zombie revolution. Once again, he's the more extreme side of things, but you get the point I'm trying to make. So I was wondering what he was trying to do, but then he learns about Max Rager, and we know what Max Rager does to zombies in general. It kind of acts as kind of like a boom, essentially kind of like a steroid. But it's interesting because I think this is the first time we've ever seen it used on kind of more feral zombies who've kind of lost their humanity. Basically, it seems like you have foot soldiers. I guess, because I'm curious, like, why do you need foot soldiers? I guess, like, they serve the purpose of being, like, this mindless army. You don't have to worry about, you know, worrying about their safety. They'll go forth without thinking, essentially. They're in a mindless army. But it's like, with giving them Max Rager, it activate stuff in their brain so that, yes, they're still feral, but they can be commanded. Like, so there's a little bit of a consciousness there to a certain extent. So I just thought that was kind of fascinating. And obviously this also deals with like the routes that like Renegade and the group use to smuggle people. So I'm guessing they're going to use that as a means to smuggle their soldiers out of Seattle and kind of spread zombieism beyond Seattle. Or maybe they're going to try and sneak out, like, oh, just in case Seattle decides to kind of blow, that they can sneak zombies out and still kind of spread it like crazy and lead the zombie army and rise up against the humans. Maybe potentially that's what Martin's planning. We still don't 100% know. it is kind of interesting. Like, obviously, like, you know, a really small part of the story that I really like. Also, like, because this all involves not just like the detective Frank, well, the PI Frank Chisel getting killed. It's also about this woman named Bunny, which that plays a bigger role than you would think it does. But I love the whole situation of kind of like, you know, Liv, you know, once again, kind of taking over the case to a certain extent. That was another line with, it's like, oh yeah, like, we'll go investigate things by following the rules, 'cause I got a warrant and whatnot. It's like, you don't solve cases by following the rules. And he's like, yes, I do. I solve most of my cases by following the rules. She's like, yes, almost all of them. Almost isn't good enough. And it's just like that little back and forth I love. But it's the whole thing of kind of like, you know, it's like kind of undermining like how Ravi and Clive help solve cases and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, we help solve cases, and it's just kind of like, okay, now Ravi regrets what he had said before about Liv being on his brain and everything. I love it. But it was kind of a nice turn of a case, because it's like, oh, everything points to Jane. And I was actually surprised. It turns out, no, Jane straight up is a killer, but you never found out exactly why. Blaine ate her brain, and he had a vision of Bunny. It turns out one of the people that bought a cure off of Blaine was Bunny's dad. Bunny had disappeared for a while, and so Frank was hired to look for her. He found out about her, found out she was a zombie. The dad bought the cure for her, so he was trying to get the cure to her, but Jane intervened. She killed Bunny, and then she killed Frank, trying to get the cure because she was a human, but the whole thing was because the cures are worth a whole lot of money. She was planning on selling it herself. And so it turns into this race, like Blaine is searching for it, and so is Liv. And it ends with a showdown between them. I mean, it's kind of like, yo, this has been like literally 5 years in the making for you two to kind of duke it out like this. It's been a long time coming, especially after everything Blaine has done over the course of this series, you know? So I like that he almost kind of getting his comeuppance, and especially because Liv was about to cross that line. He's like, you're not a killer. She's like, I'm warming up to the idea, because it's like, how many lives will I save by killing you right here and now? Because of the fact of the matter is, as long as he's been alive and as long as he continues to live, like, a whole bunch of people are in trouble. Even the kids with the Freylet condition. But it turns out his kidnapping plan isn't going all according to plan, because a lot of them have hidden, because like the work, you know, it's become public knowledge of like, holy crap, like my brain could be used as a zombie cure, so people are going to try and come after me. Darcy's the only one who's really kind of taking the opportunity. Everyone else is kind of in hiding, so it's a lot harder to kind of go after them. Hence why his kidnapping team, I thought it was kind of interesting the moment like Candace and one of the kidnappers like locked eyes, and it's like, wait, what was that? And that ends up being kind of a plot point. It's like a thinner plot point, but I'll get to that soon enough. But showing you how Blaine operates with the whole aspect of like, Blaine is always going to find a way to squirm his way out of something, because the bat that Crybaby used, the moment, like, luckily Clive and them got there before, you know, Liv had to, you know, do anything, because she probably would have had to kill Crybaby, but it was still 2 versus 1. But luckily Clive showed up and it's like, hey, that blood will most likely go back and turn out that that's actually Jane's blood, so we're taking you down. But then Blaine's like, yeah, Crybaby's the one that killed her. I witnessed it. Yeah, sorry, Crybaby. You can't get away with killing people. You can't kill people and expect to get away with it. And it's like, you SOB. Like, once again, showing the fact is, Blaine will continue to get away with everything, and that's kind of like his whole thing of like, will he ever get what's his? You kind of hope so. I think everything's building up to be like, oh, he's getting away with it. He will never suffer the consequences. Once again, I'm thinking when this is all said and done, either Blaine's going to jail or he's going to straight up die. I think someone's going to end up killing Blaine, but I could be wrong. He may just end up in jail. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where that ends up taking us, but there's a lot of other stuff to talk about. Like, I love Peyton's just kind of down, because obviously, like, you know, for her, it's like, oh, after everything she put in, you know, working for the city, it's like literally everything that she's done could literally fit inside of like one file folder or something like that. So it's like everything about her career is just down the toilet. She even like, what was she saying? Like, she always wanted to be a paleontologist, because even if you don't find bones, it's not like you get fired from your job. So she's drinking. She wants to dance and party it up at karaoke at Donnie D. Goods. She sings I Don't Care. I wonder, does Ali Mashaka still do music? I know back when she was on Disney, you know, her Ali and AJ, I don't know if they still do stuff together or not. That just kind of clicked in my head. I was like, when she was singing, I was like, right, you do sing, you do make music. Like, that was I don't know if that's something she really does anymore. I'm just curious. Like, I should actually kind of look into that when I get after this recording, because I was actually curious about it. I'd actually forgotten about that because but nevertheless. But the dude criticizes her like, "Oh, you're a terrible mayor, just like you're a terrible singer," and she punches him in the face and starts a bar fight. And Donnie's like, "What the hell? Not on karaoke night." But it was sweet, the whole his situation with him and Darcy. Like, I knew Darcy got upset because of the way he talked about Bunny. I'm like, "Oh, do you not know who you're associated with?" Like, Donnie's kind of a scummy dude. I mean, granted, he's not as scummy as Blaine, but he's still on the scum level. So I was like, really? I was like, oh, I guess this is your first time really get just how like nonchalant him and Blaine were having to, oh, Bunny's, because I love it too. He's like, what? Bunny? Oh, she was so good. And he's like, I know. Donnie's like, now I'm gonna have to find someone to replace her. It's just like, ugh. But it turns out that's what upset Darcy, because for her, it's like, you were so callous about her being killed and just easily just having to replace her. That she's like, when I died, I was worried that you'd feel the same way. But it's like, no, I would never replace you. You're irreplaceable because I love you. And it's like, oh. And he gets down on one knee. He's like, Darcy, because he doesn't know her last name. She's like, Bennett. He's like, Bennett. William Mary, she's like, what the hell? It's like, oh, it's so cute and adorable. I love that. Because, I mean, she doesn't have much time, so it's like, why waste time, So it's actually kind of sweet. I kind of, it's going to be a tragic situation, I'm sure, but, just their stories kind of, there's a clock ticking down for their story, and it's just kind of like, oh. But nevertheless, I just thought that was pretty neat. There's everything at Fillmore Graves, because it's like, okay, so what do we do about all of this? Because it's like now they've got obviously everything that went down last episode. They're still kind of reeling from that. They have to worry about the higher ups, the government deciding whether they're going to nuke Seattle now. Basically, the people convening for that decision, they're like, let's take up 48 hours. The general whose daughter died last episode, like obviously because his daughter's on the news, so it's like hitting him hard now. He has literally no reason to ever like spare Seattle, so he's all gung-ho about it. It's actually interesting, the chairwoman of that group, like her grandchild was watching iZombie, and I think watching that gave her a different perspective on the situation. She was one of the people that wanted to take time anyway to kind of fully flush out other options and stuff like that to make sure that this is what everyone voted on, and it was a 50-50 split. She came down to be the deciding vote, but for her it's like, no, like, these people aren't, yes, they're capable of bad things, but at the same time, it's like, the argument, and it's kind of something she leans into, but it's like, humans are literally the same way. They're no different in that regard. Yeah, zombies can be capable of doing terrible things. Human history shows you that humans can be just as destructive, can be just as monstrous, So, it's not that big of a stretch. So it's like, we got to give them a chance. We don't have the right to just kind of, like, wipe them out, essentially, so I thought that was pretty neat, like how iZombie did have a positive effect in that regard. So they're not going to go with the whole nuking Seattle. Obviously, the general didn't like that, and he turns to Dolly, which is like, okay, so this is your plan. Like, but still, that's why I'm like, I guess, like, at the very least, if she can get one general on her side. I mean, and I guess that's why she specifically used his daughter for that moment, was because she knew it would side him on her side. So I guess the whole thing is like, they're going to have a powerful ally helping them rid the world of zombies, which is interesting because Dolly doesn't realize Martin's got people amongst that same government group. Well, not just that group, but government officials like senators and stuff who are also infected, who are now zombies and stuff. So it's like, there's a lot at play on that higher level too. Then obviously Ravi brings up, once they hear about the whole major situation of like, oh yeah, like the missing Max Rager, it's like, okay. So now that all leads back to, Ravi telling Liv, it's like, your dad was really interested in Max Rager, and they break into his place to find out like what this is all about. They find like, oh, all his records are basically him testing utopium over the years, and they end up stumbling across the group of zombies he has. So it's like they're seeing firsthand potentially what he's up to. Granted, he's back in his house and they're there, so it's like, okay, so what are we going to do in this situation? I'm very, very interested to see what's in store next episode, dude. Things are coming down to the wire. We've only got like a handful of episodes left, dude, and things are heating up on all cylinders, especially because Liv went through so much trouble to believe her dad, kind of build a relationship, and now it's kind of like, okay, he's definitely up to something and got to figure out what that something is. It's going to be so interesting to see where all these different plot points take us as we step closer to the end of this series. I'm very excited to see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye. Bye.